Are the Boston Celtics truly frauds, or is this the year they get the job done? You see, the Boston Celtics are one of the most storied franchises in the NBA, as they currently have 17 championships, only tied with the Los Angeles Lakers. And let me tell you, the team in third place doesn't come close to that many rings. However, the thing about the Celtics rings is that they're a bit fraudulent. You see, Bill Russell went out and won 11 for the franchise. And while Bill Russell is a great player, he was winning all of those championships during the 50s and 60s. And if NBA Twitter thought that the 90s had no talent, no skill, oh my god, just wait till they get a hold of the 50s and 60s content, because that wasn't even the basketball. It doesn't come close to the game we see today. That is a whole different sport. And those are the years in which the Celtics were winning their championships. Hell, in the last 37 years, the Celtics only have one ring to their name. And there are a number of factors as to why that's the case. How you take a look at the mid-2000s, early 2010s, the Doc Rivers era, if you want to call it. That was the year in which they won their most recent championship back in 2007-8, right? When they went up against Kobe and the Lakers, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen were all able to get the job done. However, they weren't able to build off of that, because while that might have been their first playoff run, it was their best one, because in the very next year, they'd go on to lose in the Eastern Conference semifinals to the Orlando Magic and, Dwight Howard and JJ Redick and them. Surprisingly, I don't know how the Celtics threw that game. And then the very next season, they rematch against the Los Angeles Lakers, and Kobe gets his 5th and final ring. And so, since the beginning of the Doc Rivers era, there hasn't been a parade in Massachusetts for the Boston Celtics, though they've gotten damn close, especially during the Brad Stevens era, in which he was the head coach for the franchise. And let's give props where they're due, because Brad Stevens did not adopt a very good roster. In fact, it was one of the worst that the Celtics organization had ever seen. And that is because as Brad Stevens was arriving, the Big Three was being shipped out to Brooklyn in a move that would define the franchise for the next decade. But we'll get to it. Right now, I want to talk about Brad Stevens and his first couple of years with the Celtics, because I feel like it's important. It shows just how great of a coach he was. He was making the playoffs and, putting up very good regular season records with guys like Isaiah Thomas, Avery Bradley, Jay Crowder, and Al Horford. And that's not to discredit those guys, okay? I know Isaiah Thomas in his prime, absolute baller. In 2016-17, Isaiah Thomas went on to average nearly 29 points while being, 5'10", 5'9", ridiculous. And how they did him was absolutely dirty. But the reason they weren't able to win anything was because they played in the LeBron James era, where he absolutely ruled over the Eastern Conference, whether it had been with the Miami Heat or the Cleveland Cavaliers. So it didn't really matter what Brad Stevens was going to do. He couldn't really get over that hump until he got real talent on this team. And that talent came very soon for him, because eventually he would get guys like a Jaylen Brown and a Jason Tatum and a Kyrie Irving. Now, this super team wouldn't come to assemble until the 2018 season, where a 25-year-old Kyrie Irving and Al Horford in his prime basically carried the team, okay? Because at the time, the starting roster also included, Jaylen Brown in his second year and a 19-year-old Jason Tatum. And I know Jason Tatum would go on to be 19 years old for the rest of the decade, but this was Jason Tatum's rookie year, and so not a lot was expected out of those two young guys, let alone a championship. And the biggest what if in recent Boston Celtics history would have had to be, what if Gordon Hayward didn't get injured in his first game? Because after that injury, Gordon Hayward was never the same. And with how far we've seen that Celtics team go, imagine what they could have accomplished with a guy like Gordon Hayward on the team. Because Gordon Hayward with the Utah Jazz, different animal. Too bad his career would, forever be ruined after the 2018 season. And, they also made a pretty deep run, farther than expected, especially because they got to the Eastern Conference Finals again. They did that, this time against LeBron James. And a 19-year-old Jason Tatum went toe-to-toe with the King, took him to 7 games. Sure, they lost, but damn, did they get close. And dang, did the future look absolutely bright for the Celtics. That, of course, leads us into the 2019 season. Things don't go well for the Celtics. They get bounced out early, and here comes 2020. COVID hits. They've had to replace Kyrie Irving with Kemba Walker because Kyrie Irving doesn't want to be there anymore. Little bit of a diva. Did that hurt the franchise? Set them back? Probably. However, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown were now hitting their strides and were expected to accomplish a lot more. And then Jimmy Butler does his thing in Miami, in the bubble, I guess you could call it. He beats, in a huge upset, beats the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. Again, they lose, and that was about it. That basically closed the door off for the Brad Stevens era, because the next year, they would go on to lose in the first round versus Kevin Durant and, you know, the Brooklyn Nets team that had Kyrie Irving on it. Yeah, sucks for the Celtics, but anyway, since then, they've also reached a finals and an Eastern Conference Finals, and were they able to win? No, they haven't been. So, you know, we're in current day now, okay? Joe Mazzulla is the head coach, and as I've talked about for the last 5 minutes, this franchise has done nothing but make deep playoff runs, get stars on their team, and fail to win a ring, okay? But this year is going to be different. You know why? Because this is the most well-rounded, stacked team they've had since that championship year all the way back in 08. Here we are in the 2024 season where Jaylen Brown has finally settled into his Robin role at 27 years old. He's gone on and scored 23 points per game, about 3.5 assists, and 5.5 total rebounds on some efficient shooting. I mean, from the field, he's gone out and shot about 50%, and from the three-point line sits at about 35%. And as the second guy on a stacked team like the Celtics, Jaylen Brown has done his job. And then you've got Jason Tatum, 19 years old, okay? He's gone out, 27 points, 5 assists, 8 rebounds. No one really talks about him, you know, being an MVP candidate, though he could have been had he, you know, gone out and stat chased, but he didn't. He played a team game. He got his guys more involved and really took on that leadership role instead of trying to be the MVP candidate that we know he could have been. He could have easily gone out, averaged 35 points a night like some of the other guys around the league, but unlike them, Jason Tatum is probably going to have a championship when it's all said and done. We'll see, okay? And then the new acquisitions that have really changed things up, have really got everybody seeing the Celtics in a whole new way, has to be Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. You know, Kristaps Porzingis, them bagging him from, I want to say, the Washington Wizards, not the biggest surprise. Some could have seen that coming, and he has played it really well with the two Celtics stars. But them being able to also get Drew Holiday, yeah, that is when everyone wrote down that the Celtics are winning not only the East, but probably the finals. Let me check my notes here. It looked like this trade took place October 1st. So for the last 6 months now, the Boston Celtics and the NBA world has known that they've got this championship in the bag. It is theirs to lose. Drew Holiday has added some much needed defense to this roster, along with Derek White, who I know has been on the team, but now that both of them were the starting guards, this team has elevated to a level that I didn't think was possible. Hell, I'm sure no one thought the Celtics could get better, and yet here they are with a young coach in Joe Mazzulla getting better day by day. That's probably why they have 62 wins on the season, and with 4 games left, they'll probably reach 66 and win a very weak Eastern Conference. This is where the questions come in, because this year's Eastern Conference has been absolutely abysmal. You know, the second best team that they have to offer, you're telling me, is a Milwaukee Bucks team who fired their head coach halfway through the season. This is Damian Lillard's first year there. Now they've got an unretired Doc Rivers who's got them at 500 since getting there. Absolute mess of an organization in Milwaukee right now. They're the second best team. Number 3 is what? The Orlando Magic, who sure got off to an extremely hot start, then mellowed out and have been playing kind of better, but let's be real. The Orlando Magic with Jalen Suggs, Paolo, you know, the freaking Wagner brothers, those guys aren't going to win a championship. And then you got New York Knicks, who are actually a good team. I feel like are very well-rounded, but they're not at 100% strength. Julius Randle is going to be missing, which is a huge piece to their team. And the Cavaliers haven't looked good towards the end of the season. Donovan Mitchell's probably out of town. So you know things aren't going to work out for Cleveland. Maybe the only team to stop these guys are Jimmy Butler and the Heat, because they've had their number for the last 3 or 4 years. So as long as they can avoid Jimmy Butler and the Heat, the Celtics should prove to the rest of the NBA world that they're not frauds and that they're finally going to get their second ring in almost 40 years. Anyway, that's about it for this video. All I really wanted to talk about as the season was winding down was this Celtics team, because they're fun. You know, hopefully they make the playoffs a little exciting and decide to lose early, but who knows. Catch y'all later. Much love. Peace.